Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. For today's video, we're going to be breaking down how you guys can go about making your very first $1 million inside of the crypto markets. During this next bull run, I believe this is going to be the biggest cycle we ever end up seeing, where the institutions pile in, where all of their clientele pile in, and we see retail adoption like we've never seen before. This is going to be the most powerful cycle, and the potential of making millions of dollars has never been higher. So for today, I'm going to be breaking down strategies that I think everybody needs to know if in fact you want to actually make $1 million in crypto, what it takes to actually make that sort of a return, and how we can be positioned early to maximize the fullest potential of this coming cycle so that we can look to do the exact same thing for ourselves. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, so as we're getting into today's video, happy Thanksgiving everybody. I wanted to make an update that would provide a lot of value for everybody that's just going to be hanging out with their families today. And really I just wanted to be talking about the way you can realistically make your first $1 million in crypto. I think that everybody has that goal. Everybody wants to be a millionaire, even if it's just a number on the screen that gives them that confirmation. Everybody wants that feeling. Everybody's investing into crypto to ultimately make that financial fortune to themselves. Some people are already millionaires, some people are already fine with that, but now they're looking to make even more money coming into this cycle. And regardless of how much you want to make, we're going to break down exactly how you can do it and what's the realistic expectation, and most importantly how we can position ourselves, because a lot of people make silly mistakes right at the beginning when the best opportunity for upside is, and because of that they kind of cost themselves when the bulk of the bull run sets in. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to make sure we're prepared right now before that actually happens. So right off the bat guys, if you want to make $1 million in crypto, there's a few different things you have to know. Now number one, you have to understand the cycles. If you don't understand the cycles, you're not going to know when to get in and out of the market. You're not going to know when to take your profits, and that's the most important thing when it comes with making any money in crypto. It's the fact you got to sell it in order to realize that gain. So that's our most important focus, is where the time frames line up and where our plan is so that we know when to actually take profits and sell. So inside of crypto, historically speaking, what we've seen are 3-year bull markets and 1-year bear markets. And over the last 10 years, we've seen that almost to the exact threshold, almost to the exact few days. The only difference would have been this first cycle right here, just because the fact at the time Bitcoin was worth like 22 million in market cap up here, and then it was worth like 2 million down here. So we got to remember that there almost was no money in Bitcoin at that time. So when we're looking at the 4-year cycles, we're mainly looking over here in the last 10 years, but it still ended up following it over in here, because if we're looking at the cycles, basically the way that we would analyze the cycle is you go from peak low to peak low, right? And that should equal 4 years. This was the only cycle that didn't, and this one was 3.2 years. So it was really close to being a 4-year cycle. Like I stated, it's just mainly because the fact there just wasn't that much money in Bitcoin at that time. So it was over in here where we really start syncing up with this pattern a lot more. And over the last couple cycles, we can see that measuring peak low to peak low, it's equaling almost exactly 4 years each time. So this is the reason we get the 4-year cycle, is because of the fact we have these 1-year bear markets. Make this red. We have 1-year bear markets. The 2018 bear market was the same, 364 days. And then most recently, the bear market that we had through 2022, it was exactly the same length as the last bear market in 2018, 364 days. So we see this same consistency every single one of our cycles. We have a 1-year bear market, and then what follows after the bottom of our bear market comes a 3-year uptrend. And so far, this has been the case every single one of these cycles. Even in our last bull run, it was the same way. And what I find interesting is the fact that the cycle from basically 2014 when we peaked all the way over to 2017, this entire cycle, as well as their 2018 bear market leading into where we're at today, is the exact same amount of time. And this is the reason we're going to be able to know where we're at in our current cycle. If we know that we have 1-year bear markets and 3-year bull markets, and then that completes a 4-year cycle, we can come over here in our current cycle, and we can see that we just finished the 1-year bear market, right? So historically, that starts a brand new 3-year uptrend. So if we're looking at this and we pull up this same little tool, we're going to be looking at about 1,064 days approximately, about right here. So it's looking like October 2025, sometime at the end of the year, October 2025. That's where our projected cycle top is supposed to be. And that's really consistent with all of our prior cycles. If you guys notice right here, we peaked at the top of this bull run at November of 2013. We peaked at the top of this bull run at December of 2017, and then we peaked at the top of this bull run in November 2021. So we end up seeing the end of the year being the topping point as well as the bottoming point. This was the end of the year, January. This was the end of the year, December. This was the end of the year, November. So every single one of our tops are at the end of the year, and every single one of our bottoms are at the end of the year. And so we're still waiting on another 2 years left inside of this cycle. So this is going to be the most important thing to understand, because when we're looking at this, we know that based off the 4-year cycle, we still have another 2 years left to go. Because look, inside of this, since we just barely started this new cycle at the bottom of our bear market, we have 3 years. So with us starting that bottom, with us starting at the bottom of that, we're currently 378 days in this new uptrend. So we're just over a year. Historically speaking, if we look at the last couple cycles and go 365 days, that pretty much takes us to the beginning of this first higher high in the new uptrend before this massive move came in 2017. If we come over here and take a look at pretty much the exact same thing inside of our last cycle, we're going to see that 365 days pretty much took us to the first impulse and correction back down onto support. We still saw the COVID capitulation after, but we can see that that was right before the majority of that peak bull run actually set in. So where we're at today, being a year into this new uptrend, with us having 2 more years, historically speaking, the latter 2 years of the bull trend are where the most explosive price action happens. So for us to just barely be starting the first higher highs, it puts us in the same trajectory as our last cycle, and it puts us in the same trajectory as the cycle before that. And it's not that far off from even the cycle going all the way back in 2011. The only difference here is the fact that we didn't have any Bitcoin halvings, and it was a tiny market cap. So it wasn't quite as correlated to this exact setup as what we're seeing today. Now going into this cycle, now that we know this, we're looking at profit taking at the end of the year 2025. The same sort of thing that we saw in all of our other cycles. The end of the year is the threshold for taking profits. So we have 2 years up from this. Now, in my opinion, the next best thing that everybody needs to learn is probably understanding the emotional psychology of a market cycle. Because when you understand this, the cycles in crypto make a lot more sense. And not only that, but once the real craziness of the crypto bull run sets in, where all of the euphoria comes in, all of the people are piling in at the exact same time, things start to get delusional. The emotions start to take over, and it's important that we have a grasp on our emotional state and we understand our own psychology, because that is what we're going to be able to use to ultimately be able to make the proper decisions in the market, stick to our plans. Because we know that we have the 4-year cycle, right? We're taking profits at the end of the year 2025. That's where our projected cycle top is going to be taking us before we start another 1-year bear market. So as we're looking at this chart, they're always going to be a little bit different, but they're going to rhyme in their own unique way as well. What I see all the way in here is pretty much the same sort of capitulation pattern. This sort of setup here is pretty much the same thing as this. It's just a little bit more unique as far as Bitcoin making this lower low. But I mean, regardless, both of these showed the same setup where we made this final lower low in depression. To me, it lined up a lot with what we see in the emotional psychology of the market cycle. And then as the market's been breaking up, we've pretty much entered this new disbelief phase where we've made a new higher high. We broke above 25K and retested its new support. Now we're getting continuation from there. In my opinion, we're really setting us in for, as you guys can see down here, it says disbelief at the beginning before this massive bull run takes place, and it says disbelief over here after the end of the cycle. And so we're going to be noticing that at the end of the bull run, you have this very beginning uptrend, right? And that's kind of where nobody really thinks it's going to do anything again. Everybody thinks it's just some bear market rally, but that's why it's called disbelief. Nobody really believes in it. But disbelief is what happens before the bulk of that bull run takes place. So what we're seeing right now is literally the very beginning of this brand new cycle. And we know this based off the time frames. The time frames also tell this as well. The time frames say that we still have 2 years to go before we're at a cycle top. And the time frames show that our brand new cycle just started at the bottom of this bear market at, $15,000, $16,000 approximately. So with that all known, all of the markets are lining up in the same sort of ways, telling us the same sort of setup. And so with us looking at this, when the market starts taking off and we start going into optimism, belief, thrill, euphoria, the market goes into new all-time highs. This is after the Bitcoin halving. We do another one of these that's been very customary with all of our prior cycles. And if this cycle ends up being, more related to maybe how euphoric 2017 got, then we can expect that the emotions of the market cycle are going to get really blown out of proportion. There's going to be all kinds of euphoria and people saying crazy things, crazy price targets and all of that, which is why my biggest mistake in the last cycle was not sticking to my plan and getting too caught up inside of the emotions of the market cycle. I had the 4-year cycle as my plan from the very beginning, and had I have stuck to that, we would have sold the exact cycle top. The only difference was I was assuming that, we were going to break out, make a much bigger new all-time high, upwards of like $200,000, and that's why, I allowed that emotional market. I allowed the emotions of the market change up my plan last second. And that's the thing that we want to make sure that we're not doing going into this bull run. These things get crazy. The markets get crazy. The prices get crazy. The emotions get very hard to control. So the only way that we can control them is to understand what they look like. And then once we get to that point, being able to recognize them puts us in a little bit of a better place long term, just because we can kind of sit there and stick to our plan. Because we can see how everybody else is reacting, it also gives us an idea of where we're at in the cycle. If we start seeing everybody acting all crazy, everybody's getting rich off of Dogecoin and all these meme coins all over again, we're going to understand that we're at a period of some type of euphoria, right? So understanding the psychology gives us an idea of where we're at, not only with ourselves, giving us an ability to control our own emotions, but it allows us a deeper insight inside the market, what everybody else is doing, so that we know, if we still if we're at a point where we might need to be taking profits, if we're at a point where things are getting really delusional, we'll at least be able to understand that and spot it by understanding the emotions inside of the market cycle. So when we're doing this, guys, remember, the 4-year cycles, having that plan for taking profits, you got to have a plan for taking profits. I showed you guys my plan for taking profits. That, in my opinion, is the most valuable tool that we have. Now, the second most valuable tool is the emotional psychology, because if we understand this, it gives us more of a grasp on, the nature of the market, I guess, which also helps us to control our own emotions. So these are going to be really the two biggest things. Now, understanding the next part is, in my opinion, also going to really separate yourself from the rest of the pack, because it's a really simple strategy that most people aren't considering. Now, the thing about it, guys, is if you want to make $1 million inside of the market, you have to understand where you're starting from. So let's assume that your portfolio is $1,000, right? You have $1,000 portfolio. If you want to make $1 million off of $1,000 investment, you're going to have to get 1,000x. You have to find some type of altcoin that's going to get you 1,000x, and that's going to equal $1 million. If you want to make $1 million off of 1,000, you have to find something that's going to 1,000x in value. Historically speaking, you have to really do a lot of due diligence and, also be a little bit lucky, probably a lot of bit lucky, if you're going to find this sort of a setup. So chances are, if you're looking to make $1 million and you only have $1,000, you're probably not going to do that, and that's not a realistic expectation unless you've got a lot of thousands of dollars to throw away trying to gamble. So it's just something to put into perspective. If you only have $1,000 invested, chances are you're not going to become a millionaire this cycle. And you're especially not going to become a millionaire in this cycle if you're buying anything within the top 500 in total market cap. That's another thing that's important to understand. You have to be buying into stuff that's very, very, very small and pretty much completely unknown at this point. You have to find a narrative that you think is going to stick around. We've been talking about the DEX narrative. That could be something that is a good opportunity. If you wanted 1,000x, there's going to be certain projects out there that are just waiting to be discovered that end up filling some void inside of some narrative that takes off in the bull market, and it provides 1,000x. There's going to be a lot of those opportunities. It's not like it's the hardest thing in the world to find them. The hardest thing in the world is holding the entirety of the cycle. But we talked about the 4-year cycle. That should give us the confirmation that we need to be able to continue to hold until the end of the year 2025, because that's where our projected cycle top is supposed to be. So with that known, we know that we need to find something now. We need to buy it, and we need to hold to the end of the year 2025, regardless of how much or how little it takes off in the meantime. And if you have $1,000, you're going to have to find 1,000x to make that $1 million. So you got to be looking at, probably sub $5 million in total market cap. probably sub $10 million, but really sub $5 million is going to put you in the very best position to be able to do that, if it's going to be possible at all. So that's just something to put into perspective. You would probably be looking at the ultimate, smallest of micro caps inside the market, and that's the only realistic way that you're going to be able to do that big picture. So that's the first setup here. Now the next one, let's assume that you've got like $10,000, right? At $10,000 you'd have to get 100x to equal $1 million. So that becomes a lot more of a realistic expectations. $10,000, if that's your initial investment, 100x isn't that crazy where we're at right now. And I know that people are going to say that that is just a silly thing to say, but the realistic truth of the matter is, had you have just found any sort of, narrative in the last cycle, getting into DeFi trends, getting into NFTs, not even just NFTs, but like metaverse tokens. Decentraland was one that did 100x for me from the bottom to the top. And there was a lot of altcoins that did that. Cardano was another one that did that, the whole layer one narrative. All it would have taken was a $10,000 investment at the low end of that cycle into a number of different altcoins, and you would have made $1 million. So it doesn't take that much money. The only problem is most people don't really know when we're at the bottom of the cycle, and they have a hard time, having the conviction to do that. But $10,000 and 100x, that is a realistic expectation. In my opinion, it's not something that's hard. If this cycle is going to take off like I think it does, we're going to see all this institutional money coming in like we've never seen before, then right now, I honestly think there's going to be a lot of altcoins that give 100x gains. I think you could probably find altcoins that are sitting at around $500 million in total market cap that are going to do 100x from here. As crazy as that sounds, I don't think that it's going to be quite as hard to find 100x in this market as it is finding 1000x. 1000x is very difficult. And even though I think that there's going to be a lot of 1000x opportunities this cycle, I think that you're much better off looking for that 100x, because if you find 100x, even if you only have $1,000 and you hit that 100x, you're going to end up with $100,000. Then you only need a 10x from that 100,000 before you're at $1 million. So it's honestly better to shoot for the 100x, but then you are probably gambling with the minuscule micro caps inside of the market. That's just my opinion. I think that there's going to be a lot more 100x opportunities, and there will be 100x opportunities that play out multiple times within the same cycle. Not that there's going to be one altcoin that just does multiple 100x's, even though there will be. It's just that finding an altcoin that does 100x, you can literally find another altcoin that's going to do 100x within a month. At the peak of the bull run, that happens constantly. So it's just a matter of being early to these things. So I think that you're better off looking for 100x than you are 1000x, regardless of what your portfolio is. I'm just trying to help you guys visualize what it actually takes to get $1 million in crypto. And so if we're looking at $10,000, 100x, like I said, you'd probably want to be looking anywhere from like 500 total market cap rank all the way down to like the top 100. You probably don't want to be going too much farther in within the top 100, just because that's getting a little bit higher. But like I said, guys, there's going to be plenty of altcoins within that top 100 that I think end up doing 100x from here. It's just that your likelihood chance of that happening becomes quite a bit smaller, if you're getting into 500 to $1 billion in total market cap. They have to be adopted so much, and they're already sitting at kind of high valuations that it just makes it more unrealistic. The chance for 100x when you're sitting at 500 total rank in market cap, sitting in some altcoin worth like $50 million, that's going to be pretty easy. It's not going to be like it's that hard to get that 100x, because it only has to go to 5 billion, right? That would only put it at, probably like the top 20 in total market cap today. And given a full brand new bull market, who knows how many billions and billions of dollars are going to be in there. Now, if you guys have $100,000, this is where it becomes a lot easier. You'd only need a 10x to get $1 million. So if you were trying to set yourself up, in my opinion, the best strategy would probably be to look for 100x, get the 100x, take your profit, and then, if you have $1,000 at 100x, you already have this 100,000, then you only need a 10x before you're at $1 million. If you have $10,000 and you hit that 100x, you're already at $1 million. And I think that the best strategy here is, if you have $10,000, I probably wouldn't invest it in more than like 2 things. You want to be more concentrated inside of like 1 or 2 projects, because that's going to give you guys the most upside potential. You don't want to be diversified too thin, because at that point you're just not going to make as much money if had you invested a bigger chunk into, one altcoin that you felt was going to provide some of those similar sort of gains. You know, if you only have $1,000 and it's spread amongst 10 different projects, you're probably not going to make as much money as had you have just taken that money and put it into maybe one or two different projects. So if you have $1,000, I would only be putting it in one thing. If you have $10,000, I wouldn't really be putting it in more than two things, three things tops. And then if you have $100,000, you know, that gives you more room to play with it. But I probably still wouldn't really want to be going into more than like seven things, if that. With $100,000, you could definitely do a lot more with it, but you still want to be kind of more concentrated inside of like a few different projects, because the upside potential is just going to be a little bit higher. So this is going to break down a little bit more about what you guys are going to realistically need to see in order to make $1 million. I don't think it's the hardest thing in the world, especially in this cycle, and especially where we're at the beginning of this bull run. You know, as long as you understand the 4-year cycles, you understand how we play the market trends to be able to take profits, to be able to come back in and buy the bear market lows. The only way you're going to be able to really know that is through the time frames, and Bitcoin follows these time frames to a T. There's nothing else that follows it better. I don't know why it does this, but it's a really great opportunity for people that understand how to invest in it long term. So as Bitcoin follows these, we're going to keep continuing to trade Bitcoin the same way until it, you know, proves us wrong. That could happen, but so far everything is lining up in the same ways our prior cycles have. So I'm going to keep playing the same narrative and trend that I have up to this point. Big picture, guys, understanding all of these different strategies and lessons I taught you guys is what helped me make my first $1 million in crypto. And I know without a fact, and I know for a fact going into this next bull run, I'm much better positioned than I ever have been in any of the other cycles. I'm earlier. I've done much more research into specific altcoins and narratives I think are going to blow up in a big way. And so it's just a matter of, you know, riding out the entirety of the cycle, sticking to our plan, not letting the emotions get in the way and, you know, costing us all of our profit potential long term. We still got 2 years left to go. There's going to be so much opportunities for upside, and all we really need to be doing right now is looking, researching, finding what narratives and what trends are going to stick around, and being early to those so that we can capitalize on a big picture. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Happy Thanksgiving. If you guys found value in this, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. If you guys want to join my Signal service, I'm actually going to be doing a 50% discount today. So if you do want access to that, you guys can reach out to me through email, you can reach out to Discord, or you can just go through the links inside the description of this video and check it out. Thank you guys so much for the support of this channel. It really means the world to me, and I'm so very grateful to have this opportunity to be able to trade and invest these markets with you guys from here. Great things coming from here. Looking forward to helping you guys make your first $1 million, because I think that there's going to be plenty of you guys that do it long term as well. Thank you so much. With that being said, I'll catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.